now, Democratic Congressman Krishnamoorthi. He was at the hearing, took part in the questioning as a member of the House Intelligence Committee. Congressman, thanks as usual for joining us. I want to get to all these specific issues, but first of all, do you think today's testimony swayed any of your Republican colleagues?
I'm not sure. I think this is chapter one in a process. I do think that it went really well from the standpoint of some very compelling witness testimony. I thought that the decorum was very good, and it was handled in a dignified manner. Credit goes to Chairman Schiff. And then I thought that we learned some new information, which you probably already talked about, namely that the president may have been even more deeply involved in this pressure scheme with regard to the Ukraine, investigating his political rivals.
Well, what about that conversation that was overheard at that restaurant in Kiev by one of Ambassador Taylor's aides, in which the president seemed to be more interested in getting information about the Bidens from Ukraine than he cared about Ukraine itself?
Yeah, that was very enlightening. We're planning to depose this individual later this week. So we're hoping to learn more. But yes, if it's true that he actually said that he wanted to learn most about the investigations and whether the Ukrainians agreed to that, and he's not really interested in the welfare of Ukraine or our relationship with regard to the Ukraine, I think that's very, very troubling.
You questioned Ambassador Taylor about whether there were wider implications of this whole Ukraine scandal. Let me play the exchange you had. Listen to this.
Can you rule out the possibility that these irregular channels of diplomacy are being used in other countries where we conduct foreign policy?
I can't. I've not heard of any other separate channel that has this kind of influence. That is the Giuliani kind of guidance.
But you can't rule it out, right?
No, sir.
Your question, that exchange really jumped out at me. What are your concerns specifically, Congressman? Do you have evidence of inappropriate pressure on other countries?
I don't specifically have evidence, but when you look at our relationship with Turkey, when you look at our relationship with Russia or even Saudi Arabia, you just scratch your head wondering why the heck did we do X, X being the latest policy move. For instance, in Turkey, there's no good reason why we should have left northern Syria and left our allies on the battlefield to be slaughtered by the Turkish forces, and in the process jeopardize our national security, by the way, because all those ISIS fighters who we had bottled up thanks to our Kurdish allies are now scurrying about the Middle East.
The White House says all the evidence that you heard today was simply hearsay. What do you say to those Americans who are skeptical about impeaching the president without hearing from any witness, at least so far, who spoke directly to the president? Americans are skeptical about testimony, certainly some of them from an aide who overheard this phone conversation.
Well, of course, there's a number of witnesses who are going to be coming to testify before us this week and next week, many of whom spoke with the president. But on top of that, we have like Mick Mulvaney, who basically blurted out a very candid admission the other day, which is that there, in his opinion, it's normal practice to have these types of quid pro quos, in this case, conditioning military aid to the Ukraine based on a political investigation happening by the Ukrainians on Americans. So this type of stuff, I think, will be scrutinized as it should be. But there are a lot of data points now that are kind of piling up, pointing in the same direction, which is the allegations, the underlying allegations of a pressure scheme against the Ukrainians to investigate Donald Trump's political rivals appears to be possibly true.
Congressman Krishnamoorthi, thanks so much for joining us on this very important historic day. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.